Hello, everybody. Welcome to ZK Live. This is episode 3. Thanks for all of you guys for watching this on the replay. We're going to have Nick Slavik on from the Nick Slavik Painting and Restoration Company out in Minnesota. He's an awesome guy. Many of you may know him.
How's it going, man?
What's up, buddy?
Oh, really good. How's audio and everything?
Good.
Good. Awesome, man. So good to see you.
You too, man. I've been watching. I feel like I've been in this room 100 times already.
Man, it is a slog to get this thing done when you want to make your own furniture and do some, pretty cool finishes too. It's just, you know how it is, man. It takes time. So I'm so itching to get going here. We've been living in the new Slavik house for like 4 weeks, and I'm just progressively trying to put this room together because if I do it right, this might be it for the rest of my life. And I really want to do it right. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, it's been cool watching. You've been posting like crazy. It's all this built-in content, right?
I know, man. And we talk about this all the time, which is, it was my ethos 10 years ago doing this, which is some of this stuff gets me so excited that I feel stupid not sharing it. Like, this is cool. I think somebody else would appreciate it. A select few weirdos out there like you and me and the people watching are like, they get immense satisfaction from it. And the rest of the people are just like, oh, when I hear people talking about different kinds of yarn to knit hats with and stuff, it just makes my eyes roll in the back of my head,
Yeah, that's funny because that was actually one of the questions I was going to ask you. Why painting? Why are you doing this whole thing? You have a lot of passion behind what you do. So where does that come from?
I don't know. So what I do know is that it's not a coincidence that my father was a painter. So it's not like I surveyed the land and I took everything in: Russian language, biologist, crab fisherman. I didn't assess everything and choose painter. It's not a coincidence that I am a painter, but I got exposed to it when I was, ever since I was born, but like I was forced to paint when I was 10. And I don't know, it just like, it clicked with me. And I do know that for some people, it doesn't click with them. So maybe it was kismet. Maybe I was forced to like it. I don't know, but either way, man, it's like from an early age, like even just taking a brush on an old farmhouse and taking primer and making one little section 100% filled, no pores, no cracks, beautiful, even finish. Like there's something deeply satisfying about that. And you know what I mean?
100%.
But you know what? There's people who don't share that same feeling, Zach.
Often, yes, and a lot of times I think it's because they weren't shown how to do it properly. Like we talked last week, my DIY tip was don't paint out of a full gallon. Like, if that's how you start painting and you don't have a drop cloth down, maybe you have a sheet in a corner, and you're using a $2 brush, like if that's your painting experience, painting's annoying and it sucks.
Oh, dude, imagine changing a tire with a rounded out lug nut wrench from the back of the car on one of those scissors jacks where the car wobbles, or you take it to your friend who owns a thing, the car lifts up, he's got the new mat. It's like, of course one is better than the other one,
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. I have a similar, my dad was a painter as well. Oh no. The compressor just turned on. I'm sorry, everybody.
No worries. Hey, listen, it's witching hour for my kids, so there's probably going to be screaming kids, air compressors. Like, listen, man, people know what they get when they watch us. So
yeah, we're real painters. It's not an act. That's awesome. So we talk a lot, but I do have a ton of questions for you.
Yeah,
I don't
of course.
want to go into too many, but I think that you have for people who don't know, you have a very unique perspective on a lot of this stuff. You're a very forward-thinking person. But a lot of people do know you. So I don't want to have you say the same thing you've said 40 times. Yeah. They can go look at your content. Nick has a show, Ask a Painter, live on Facebook. Fridays, what time?
Noon Central.
Fridays, noon Central. I always mess that up. With the time changes and but noon Central, you can go watch Nick. He also you post prolifically, so there's tons of content there.
Just like you.
yes, and I'm trying to be more prolific. But I have a lot of respect for a lot of things that you do. This compressor is unbelievable. Still going.
Fight through, Zach. Fight through.
I bought the expensive one that was supposed to be quiet too. But you have core values that you've written down, and they're very important to your company. I have core values in my head, and I think I like beat that drum to my people very consistently. But it is my goal very soon to write down my core values and to make them a bigger part of my business. You have made it a big part of your business. I'd like to hear your core values, why, and then maybe you could give me some examples of like real life things that happen in the field with painters that having core values affected.
No, absolutely. And core values is one of the sort of like foundations of a good painting company. And I am going to pull up, we just modified some of the wording on them, so I'm going to make sure I get this exactly right. But so I'm a big fan of traction, as you know. And when I tractioned my business, one of the first things they have you do is like not plan for profit. It's what are you doing here? Why are you doing it? What is the foundation? How do you know who to bring into your company, who to keep around, who to get rid of, and who to promote, and all this other stuff? And all of us do it on, like that. We're like, I don't know, I got a gut feeling about this guy. He's going to be real good, but you actually have to base it on something. When I went to college, mission statements, core values, things like that were just gross. I mean, every big corporation has one. They're all the same. And it just seemed like lip service, something you put on a poster in a lobby. So I was against these things because it just seemed like somebody said, do good work, make happy clients, be good to people. It's like, yeah, no shit. It's like we're all in favor of that. But traction made you get more specific. Like when you hire somebody, how you got to hire them. And trust is number one. So the first core value, gain and maintain trust. So you have to gain it, and then you have to maintain it. And that's basically with our clients and within the people in the company. And when it's really funny, when we promote somebody, we have a continuum of like 9 things in order of importance, 1 to 9 on, do you deserve a promotion? Let's start at number 1. We've never got past number 1. And when we fire somebody, we never get past number 1. We don't have to be on number 7 saying, I don't know, it might not work. If they never pass number 1, like if trainer Tina doesn't want to work with you, good luck. Like we don't have to go and see how many callbacks you had on your jobs or what your production rate is. Like if you don't have the trust of us and our people, you're done. So number 2, continuous improvement. So as you know, we have a super rigorous apprenticeship program. And if you don't continuously improve, this is a horrible business model. If we just have a bunch of goompers here just stagnating in the water, not going forward, this sucks. And it's very, very hard. So gain and maintain trust, continuous improvement, quality always wins. Because again, that's something that we both hold near and dear to our heart, where if you have and this is something, an expression I heard from carpenters, if you have a choice to pig it in or do a good job, like don't pig it in, like just, do the right thing always. And I will make sure that financially this company is around. It's way better to do good things than to just do it. Discipline equals freedom. So this has been the core value that we've spent a lot of time on in the last 6 weeks because of the whole COVID thing. Times like this, when people are more disciplined, and I know that you're thinking about it, everybody else thinks about it too. If you think about the time when you got up early, you ate healthy, you spent time with your family, you did the hard things that you didn't want to do, but you had to do, and you kept your head down all day and just did the basic things really well, you feel better, you get better results, and in the end, more money, more time equals more freedom. So it's always counterintuitive. You think, well, if I have this ultra regimented day where if I wake up at a certain time, then I got to devote time to this. You think, oh, I'm a robot. I'm never going to have any freedom. I'm a slave to the schedule. Well, if you do it right, I like to concentrate my time where, basically I work 4 days a week, 4.5 days a week, give or take. But those are ultra disciplined 4 to 4.5 days. And then I completely shut it off and I spend 2.5 to 3 days with the family every week. So discipline equals freedom. And I like to concentrate it to get both. And then produce. I mean, we are a manual labor industry, and we're on week 1 of exterior training. I'm taking the second half of the company next week, and we're doing some brushing up of our standard operating procedures, and hence the actual paint on my hands. we are a producing industry, and if you're not sweating, you're not doing a good job. You need to run. So gain and maintain trust, continuous improvement, quality always wins, discipline equals freedom, and produce. And basically, those things we rate everybody numerically 4 times a year, and they get a score on it, and that's how we decide who gets raises and who gets fired.
That's so impressive. And I'll tell you, the one that gives me anxiety thinking about it because of my nature, and you inspire me with what you just said, because every time I hear you say discipline equals freedom, I'm not the most disciplined human being, and I struggle with like the minutia, and I'm great at getting things, the ball rolling and getting things going, and then it's that like follow through that is definitely my weak point. So I have like this like, oh, like, but you're right. Like, you're 100% right.
No,
like,
but I will tell you this, man, like, and you know this too, I'm way more like you than not like you. And I have to be super intentional about being disciplined. I mean, it is very hard. There's portions of my life where I'm undisciplined at, and I actually have accountability partners that I report to every day to, I find the things that I'm not good at, and I can't be held accountable by myself, and I find other people to do it. So this isn't, I will say this, objectively, when I talk to a whole bunch of other world-class painters like you, it seems like the one really good thing that I just naturally do is just wake up early. And I think that's a huge competitive advantage. Like, whether I set an alarm or not, it's 4 o'clock every day. And that's my rhythm. And somehow it helps business. You know, it just gives me that extra few hours in the morning as a kick. Huge competitive advantage. If I did not naturally do it, I would force myself to do it, because that time is ultra productive. That time between like 4 and 7 and 4 and 8 is alone, quiet, dark time. It's here. I'm watching the sunrise out of these windows. I can hear the birds. Nobody's here. My whole family's sleeping. And when I do that, again, discipline equals freedom, concentrated discipline. I think of that as a very good thing, because then that allows me at 4 or 5 o'clock, shut it off, phone goes down, and then I hang out with the family, because I've done all that stuff. I've done all the corresponding and the following up and everything. So objectively, I'm lucky that I wake up early, you know?
Yeah, you definitely are. How much do you think your military background helps you, affected you, all that kind of stuff with all of this?
So I don't like shaving. That's one big takeaway I got from the military. Yeah, I know, right? And especially in COVID times, man, it's getting grisly over here. So what's interesting is that the military taught me how to not run a business and taught me what I don't want to be. Now, my time in the military was magical. It was wild, wild west times. 2 wars were going on. It was machine guns, parachutes, bombs, overseas, this and that. It was a young untethered man's dream. Now, they have a thing called SOPs, just like us, but they have it for how to brush your teeth, how to fold your pillowcase, how to do it. They went so far that, you've seen all my stuff. Simplicity is a hallmark of my business. And no matter what, I did not want all that, legalese and stuff in my things. And I saw people got lost in the complexity. I mean, when I used to be in the motor pool repairing like a Humvee or something, there would be like 6 binded manuals this wide there of all the little things you could do to this thing. This thing didn't have like seats or seat belts, but yet it had 6 manuals, and it's just like, they went too far, Zach. It's too much. So simplicity. There's 9 steps to paint a bedroom. Don't worry, I'm not going to have diagrams and illustrations and indexes. So it taught me that, and also leadership. I met a lot of people that I did not want to follow around into wherever we were going, because I didn't share their core values. Didn't seem like they would have my back. Didn't seem like we were on the same sort of mission. But for every 10 of those, there were 2 people who inspired the living hell out of me, that could do more push-ups, could run faster, could shoot better, got up earlier, stayed up later, were happier, worked harder, everything. And it's like you witnessed a different class of human being that you sort of realize, like, it doesn't matter how hard I work in my life, I will never get to there. but I'm with that guy, you know, and that's what I want. And it was those people who led from the front, led by example, who, when they said, get on that 60-foot ladder or fire this shoulder fired thing at this and actually hit it, and they did it and nobody else could, you're like, oh, well, they can back this up. And I've taken those things away. Yeah, it was way too regulated for me. I need to do this, what we're doing, which is the harder we work, the more we get. In the military, it's not necessarily that. They have a rank and pay structure that says 31 years, if you've done this, you're only going to make this, you're only going to get this. And that wasn't interesting to me. So
there's something to be said for the infinite, for people like us.
Well, and we like risk and reward. In the military, the more you're willing to risk, there wasn't a complimentary reward. And in this, what we're doing now, absolutely. Every time I get up at 4 a.m, it's not because I don't think there's a complimentary reward for that.
Yeah. So that's another thing I was going to ask you about, and you got there. The complexity in business is like goes against what I understand, everything that you stand for. Another thing that I've emulated from what I've learned from you is the simplicity that you've built into your business. I am a guy who, before that, I was very into always trying a new, better, best practice, right? Still am, but to a point, it stops being something that you can reproduce with other people. And that's where we've talked a lot about this. Like, the ability for me to do 1 door a month versus doing 5 with a team of people and giving them a positive atmosphere to come to work in and affecting all of that positive change in the world. I've begun to adopt your simplicity model, but if you would talk a little bit about that, I think people would love to hear it.
Yeah, and first off, you know, you're giving me a lot of praise, but also you are the high watermark as far as quality goes. When I talk about quality always wins in my company, we watch your videos, and we're saying that you guys, if you guys think that hour and 10 minutes I took to prep and paint that door was a lot, and you guys were like, oh, you know, that's a crazy. Why would you do that? I'm like, take a week, take 2 weeks. I got a guy who does that. And still, he's probably not as happy as he could have been. He probably finds little faults in that process. So, yes, I am a believer in craftsmanship is a weapon and a tool that I want to have, but I want to be able to use it when I want to. A lot of people draw this line between, you know, apartment painting or what Zach Kenney does, which is, you know, monster gloss doors. And they don't see anywhere to marry the two, you know? And I am a huge fan of saying, listen, if you want to do this the rest of your life alone, do that. Do what Zach Kenney does, because perfection is never going to be enough. Your clients were happy in 10 hours of work on the door, and you put in 71 or 171, and you've almost made them angry because their door's been missing for 2 months. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where have that, because there's clients that want that, but use it as a weapon. But also, how could you ever get anybody to meet your standards? Like, you are a unique guy. And if you had somebody apprentice with you for 10 hours a day for 9 years, they probably you'd have to check in on them. You know what I mean? Like, you and I have that thing. It's good and it's bad. So I realize that I get just as much satisfaction as, you know, a historic restoration, gold leaf, things like that, as I do a family atmosphere, fostering the next group of tradespeople, and having these young, bright minds around me, seeing the satisfaction in their face like you and I did when we were younger. So I thought, you know, let's push the limits of the craftsmanship when we can, but also I don't want to work alone. Like, we talk about martyring ourselves for the trade a lot, and I'm willing to do that in little doses, but I'm not going to spend my life doing it, you know? So yeah, we need to have insanely simple, high quality, bang for the buck processes that apprentices can easily pick up and do, so that they can eventually get the experience to do what we do. But also, I don't want to do one color apartment repaints with builder's flat either, you know? So we have to find, like, and your finishes are way more in depth, way more beautiful, way more sophisticated than mine. I'm a firm believer of, if we want to grow this company fast and we want to do it good, we take bomb-proof products that you can find everywhere. We apply them in a masterful way. We have 1 coat of primer, 2 coats of some sort of pseudo enamel on the top. And you know what? We are far surpassing our clients' needs and our wishes. I want it to go farther, but at the same time, it's like at some point, you have to say, if the clients are overwhelmingly happy and our people are having fun and they're satisfied and there's money coming into the company, that needs to be a standalone thing that we should all be proud of.
Yeah, I love that. There's so much to be said for that. And that's for me, we talked about this, and we'll talk about this a lot next week with Jessica, or next on Friday with Jessica, is taking the ego out of it and giving clients what they want. And I've been guilty quite often in the past, especially of, going 170 hours on the door and pissing the client off.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, look at this piece of magic I've brought you.
Look what I've done.
Yeah, I wanted it a month ago, and I didn't care, but that extra 100 hours that actually hurt. That didn't help.
Yes, exactly.
And it's like, it's not about my ego anymore. And when you have employees, like I said last, like there's no room for that. Like, it's the idealism needs to go out the window.
But I will say this, and there's the Zach Kenney approach on one end, which you've slightly modified and altered. But there's also the other end where people say, you know what, buy the cheapest paint, just get anybody who's not a felon in, and just get it done. You know, there's that thing too. If you're serving the market that sees value in that, good. The majority of residential house painters, that's not your market, and you're not going to provide value doing that. So I see the craft and what you do and the highest ends of what I do as a weapon, where we got tapped to do a historic restoration of a theater in Minneapolis, downtown Minneapolis, this winter. I want that as a weapon where somebody's like, yeah, Nick, I know you got the apprentices, you're doing trim and cabinets and walls and ceilings and new construction, but you know, there's we got this theater restoration. I'm like, oh yes, we can do that too. We have a staff of 4 artists that happen to be busy cabinet painting, but they will come there with a 5-gallon bucket full of artist brushes and they will do a theater restoration. So for me, that's the sort of thing, like a reward for my people, you know?
Yeah. I'm interested to hear what you have, what you can say on some tips on how to build SOPs, how to build systems in general in your business, because I think a lot of people in our business do struggle with that. And you have your PhD in it. So can you give us some like broad, like baby steps? How do you get into is there a system to creating systems?
Yes.
That might be even more important.
Yes. And this is something that, I'm too close to this stuff because I've spent the last 3 years, like, you know, again, PhDing it. And, I get very frustrated when painters say, I'm going to hire somebody to do it. I'm starting the spreadsheets. I'm getting this and that. We're doing that. I've been working on it for 6 months. When it came time in traction, after the core values were done and everything else, you have to document your processes. And so you can actually say, here's a product we offer. In 2 hours, I made an SOP for every single basic painting process we have in our company. So this is the SOP. And I know, Zach, you're one of those guys who will hire 10 consultants, you'll get the graphs out, and you'll take it to the farthest degree. You'll have virtual reality simulators for training, and you'll do this. That's awesome. And I will love to see that when you're done with it. But what I did was, here's how you paint a bedroom. You move the furniture, you put drop cloths down, you patch. You turn fans on. While you're waiting for the patches to dry, you tape. After the taping's done, you take the switch plates off. After the switch plates, you sand the patches. After that, you do coat number 1, coat number 2. You vacuum, sweep, and dust. You put all the switch plates back on, move the furniture back. That's it. 10 steps or less. That is an SOP. That's all that my people have. There's a laminated thing with 10 steps on it that basically says that. And so when I hear somebody who knows how to paint and has been painting forever and says, oh, these SOPs, even new construction, just think about it. Your SOP can be as simple as do all the stain and varnish work first and seal it up and prime the walls, finish paint the ceilings, trim carpenters get in, fill the holes, caulk the cracks, prime, SVT, top coat 1, top coat 2, sand the walls, 2 top coats on the walls, you're out of the house. SOP number 2 done. That's it. That's it. All it is the steps. And then what I do is take a training module after that, and I have like there's probably a 40 to 60 PowerPoint slide where then it takes those 9 steps how to paint a bedroom and it shows step number 1, moving furniture. Here's what that looks like, and here's the thing over it. So you take it in depth, but if you take a 60-page manual for how to paint a set of kitchen cabinets and send it out to the field, it will not be used. So that's all my people want. We train, we know that apprenticeship has nothing to do with what you've written down or your SOPs or something else. That's a clinical thing that they look at to say, I took the switch plates off, what's the next step? Fine, that's a reference. You know, they can't, it's not intuitive to them yet, so they reference. And the idea is to get reference into intuition, so they actually know that stuff. And we do that with human contact. So when people say, send me your apprenticeship program or send me your SOPs, it's like, I'll send you my laminated book and you can give it to your guys, but if nobody's going to be there to work through the specific steps of it, it's useless, you know? So I know that, at least for my people, 20% has to do with the SOP, because I've taken the mysterious world of painting, boiled it down into 9 steps, and now all they have to do is have somebody that knows those 9 steps teach them the 9 steps. So we spend 80% of our time shoulder to shoulder backpacking, taking trainer Tina or somebody else who knows what they're doing and just says, when Nick says take the switch plates off, this is how you do it. You take a number 2 regular screwdriver, you put all the switch plates in a Ziploc bag, you set it on top of the dresser that has a drop cloth on it. That's it. And it's the same place in every room, you know. So sorry, I feel like I'm being long-winded.
No, but that is so, I love that idea. Like, so the first time I ever wrote an SOP was for a gloss wall. And like 42 steps later, I'm like, oh man, look at this. I got this beautiful 42-step process to a gloss wall. And the plan was to like print them out and put them on the job sites, like hang them on the door. And so the clients could see like how involved this process was and blah, blah, blah. But the way you just described it, it takes the fear away of this like big crazy thing. When you just, because so much everything you just said to me is like, I could like put me to sleep. Like the idea of it, the process. Like, of course, I've been painting my whole life. Like I know how to paint a room, but when you don't, having the basic guidelines written out. Sometimes when you're an expert, it's hard to talk to lay people about what you do. Well,
and it's tough. And you know, I have lots of questions about gloss, and you're always my guy. And I'm sure, well, you're everybody's guy for that, but you're my guy for that. And I abuse our relationship sometimes with intricate questions about that stuff. So when I think about that, you know, if I had apprentices and I was trying to teach them gloss, which makes me shudder to think the complexity of that. You know, there's a couple steps that you would put up about prepping the room, then the next major milestone of getting the walls smooth, and then either priming or painting process. And for me, I found instead of laying out the 42 steps, here's the basic idea. Like when we're doing this exterior training, here's how we get the house ready for paint. Here's the issues we have to look for. Once we do that, we're going to go through a long prep phase. We're going to do 2 top coats, and then we're going to clean it up. And that's helpful to them because we'll say, hey guys, listen, we're looking at my project plan here. It looks like we got a day and a half of prep. We got 2 days of top coating and then about a day of cleanup. And then they can start like putting their arms around this thing, you know? So I can only imagine if you bring a person who's never done a gloss room or a gloss wall or a gloss ceiling, like they must be thinking, yeah, throw a drop cloth down, a couple coats on, we're out of here. And you're just like, you have now entered into a month-long project, you know?
Yeah. I think I have so much respect for the way that you take somewhat complex, fairly complex things and can simplify them down so that you've been able to have a workforce of what, 20 plus people now? Yeah. And I meant to say this earlier. Traction is a book. If anyone didn't know, Traction is a book. It's a valuable read. After talking about this, I'm going to go read it a second time because I know how impactful it's been, and I've seen what you've done. And, you know, I think it's no one can say it's not impressive.
Well, and no one can say it's not a lot of hard work, and it's very hard, and a lot of things have to happen right too. And it's not praise for myself; it's a truth about our industry, and you know that. Like it's a human-based industry, and if you can work with humans, and if you can incentivize humans and get them that satisfying feeling, you win. And it's not always about paint. I've never, within the first year of somebody starting painting or starting their own business, they may not be able to paint perfectly, but after their first year, there's not many bad painters out there. There's bad business owners, you know?
Yeah. That actually brings me to one of the questions somebody asked. What would you recommend to like someone, a new business owner starting out? I get this question a lot in my DMs, and most of the time I try to stop them from starting their own company and make sure that they know what they're doing, you know, because it's too easy to start. The bar is so low.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that I personally, unless you are a business savant, I think it's really tough to start a business if you don't know how to do the work. And if you're a business person and you want to start a painting company, you don't need painting experience. I personally think that you have to be better than your boss before you start your painting company.
It helps.
Like, it helps because he's already in business and you have to go compete with him the next day.
Yeah.
So hopefully you're better than him in some way. But I'm interested to hear your take on some things that you would tell new business owners.
Do you want businessy stuff or craft stuff?
Sort of the big picture stuff, maybe
yeah.
stuff that's not super like you know, cliche, hear it all the time.
Yeah, I will say that I learned by doing and taking on everything yourself, concentrating that pain and suffering and discipline and hard work into a smaller area will let you cycle through problems and solutions quicker to course correct so that you actually can start doing the right things. I know people who go an entire summer doing a certain standard operating procedure on the exterior of a house, only to find out because they're not doing the book work and they're not paying attention to their clients, none of it has worked and they lost an entire exterior season. We made a change to the standard operating procedure, a pretty big one this year. And we've already changed it on the first 2 jobs of the year. Again, it's course correcting. We spent all winter adjusting.
Can you tell us what that is?
Yes, we're incorporating much more spraying. We're known as a hand finishing company, but it turns out that my people are insanely good at spraying because we do so much interior fine finishing that we've adapted that to houses outside. So we're incorporating a new process of that. And it just takes, you know, just like everything else, it's 70% prep and 30% spraying when the way we used to hand finish houses was 85% painting and 15% prep. So we've already made, you know, changes with that. So it's been really interesting. So yes, I will say, you know, when apps aren't going to do it, generally a whole bunch of hard work and a whole bunch of trial and error is going to do that. I will say this. I talk to a lot of guys who have never done spreadsheets before. Learn how to do a simple spreadsheet. It takes you half a day. If you've never used Excel or G Sheets, that's going to be your lifesaver. Also, do your own book work. It's just a checkbook. Like, people think that business is infinitely complex and there's like shares and futures and trading markets. And it's like, it's just a checkbook. Your clients pay you, you pay for paint. I mean, that's all. Things come in, things come out. And when you're a one-person business, it's probably 20 transactions a month if you have a lot going on. Even in my business right now, there might only be 60 to 70 transactions a month in my checkbook. And it's not infinitely complex, you know? So doing that, seeing what's coming in and coming out will give you the immediate pulse on your company. And that will tell you if you're doing good or bad. I mean, some guys wait till tax season to find out if they did well or not. And that's a horrible idea because most of them find out they didn't do well. And then they have that crisis of faith that we talked about. So it's an interest. Yeah, I would say, you know, I'm a big fan of, we all do this in our head, which is, did I make money on this job? And for many years, my job costing was basically, you know, you paid for some paint, you had some hours of labor, and you basically just figure out either what was your revenue per hour on the job or what was your gross profit. And surprisingly, when I talk to painters all over the country, people we know and love running fairly big companies, some people have never done that. They just use their checkbook and taxes as a sort of bellwether for, am I making money? And it's as simple as, you know, when I had paper estimates and I was painting alone, at the end of the job, right before I loaded my truck, you flip it over. Here's how many gallons of paint, cost per gallon. That's my material. Here's my labor hours. You take your revenue that the person paid you, you minus out your paint, and then you divide it by your hours. And that tells you how many dollars per hour you made on that job 55 is an industry average. It's going to be much higher if you're you and me working alone. That's just how it is. I see guys doing somewhere between $70 and $110 of revenue an hour if they're a single person painter and they're really kicking tail.
Yeah.
So
I love the idea of shortening the feedback loop.
yes.
So that if you can, so you can course correct quicker. I definitely didn't do that for a long time. And when you can shorten that feedback loop by actually looking at, did that just go well? I think a lot of times I just didn't want to look at it because I know it didn't go well. But actually looking at it and again, I think I wish I had taken a lot of my idealism away and not been idealistic about the business, about lots of stuff, and just been a little bit more, here are the numbers. Okay. I think it's a skill to look inward at what can I do better and not blame the world for things.
I should mention too, that's an insanely good point, and one that I forget to bring up all the time, which is when, like 3 years ago, when we went through a huge reformation in the company, we did traction, we started putting job budgets on, we formalized the apprenticeship program, we did everything. The one thing I always forget to mention is, first, I handled myself. I basically asked my wife, like, what are the things that the traits of my father that I still had? And my father was a painter, but he did not do this very well. And he certainly didn't foster the next group of craftspeople, the next generation of craftspeople. And we made a list of like the 10 traits that I had of my father's, and I was trying to be intentional about changing those. And that's honestly, looking inward is probably what changed the most. What am I horrible at? And the answer I always get from people is, well, I'm not good at spreadsheets. I'm gonna hire a marketing company. I'm gonna hire an accountant. I'm gonna hire a lawyer. If you're a single person company, do it yourself, man. Like, you're gonna learn so much. Do it for a year, then hire it out. Because
I wish I had done that. But yeah, I too had I've done a lot of work on myself, and I think
yes,
if you're a business owner, like being incredibly honest with yourself and looking inward always, because it's like the serenity prayer. They say, it's the things you can control you should be focusing on, and everything else you got to let it go. And
that's exactly it, man. And especially when you're a single person painting company or starting out, it's insanely expensive to hire that stuff out. And you know what? The thing that nobody mentions is, if you hire out your accounting, you still have to verify everything that they do. If you just expect to send them stuff and whatever, everything's good, you still need to run through the numbers, check them, and then you have questions. So again, it's, people think that, if you have a monster painting business, everything runs itself. You still need, I spend just as much time holding key people accountable as I did doing all the things myself. We're just multiplying. I can only do 1 unit of business. Now we can do 10 units of business because I just verified the key leaders in charge of those units of business.
Yeah. All right. So let's get a little less serious. What's your favorite job that you've ever done and why?
Oh man. I did a string of historic restorations in a town about an hour from here. And they're brick Victorian mansions, 3 to 4 stories high. It's an old German community, and I got in with one bed and breakfast. It was a monster stick Victorian. It was one of those ones with 14 different kinds of siding, but it was all white. It had always been white, 140 years, and it's just beautiful, intricate trim everywhere. And it was one of the first jobs I ever did when I started my own business. I was friends with the owner of the bed and breakfast there, and she was sort of my mother in that town. When I would come and do work there, she would put me up. She would make me breakfast and make sure I had everything I needed. And she wanted her house painted. And at that time, I was still working with my father when I got out of the Army. I brought it to my father and said, I have the crown jewel of when we finish this house, man, this is going to be every postcard, newspaper ad, website, everything. And he just said, no, I'm not interested. It was too big of a project for him. And I was pissed off, man. And so 6 months later, when I went off on my own, I called her. She let me do it. I restored the entire outside of this Victorian mansion, plus the carriage house, which was 3,000 square feet, by myself in 2.5 weeks. And I used that as the standard. It was all hand scraping, all hand brushing and everything. I use that as the standard by which I judge that stuff. That house means something so deeply to me because it was a proof of all the things that I've wanted to do, the quality, the things that my father was not willing to do, and the course correction in our life. And it's a really meaningful job. It's so near and dear to me because that house burned down a few years ago, and the owners perished in it. And it's a weird feeling, man. It's a really, really weird feeling to have one of your crowning achievements and the people you love in it not there anymore. And but it was I think about it every day. I love the people, I love the house, and it'll be with me forever. So yeah, that is deeply, deeply ingrained inside me.
That's intense. I was not expecting. That's an unbelievable.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I've never really thought about what my favorite job was until now. I've never actually put a thing to it, but that's definitely it.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm not going to share my favorite job now. All right. How about a DIY tip? We all know that painting for the average person can be difficult. Do you have a favorite DIY tip that you'd like people to know?
Yes. So interior, get some frog tape, tape your woodwork, get a Wooster Pro Doozy 1/2-inch roller cover, and get a Purdy Pro Extra Elasco brush. And yes, one of the roller covers is $7. And yes, the brush is, I don't know, $20 to $24, maybe. I don't know. But the room will be twice as good. And get a good, you don't have to buy top of the line, just buy something good. Just stay away from the big box stores. They make good products there, but honestly, just spend $40, $50 on a gallon of paint. And outside, you can't buy paint good enough. That's the thing where you go for the outer limits of that, because materials is going to be 15% of your job. Your labor is going to be everything. So to get $3 a gallon Sears Easy Living for your garage or top of the line is only going to be the difference of maybe 3% on a project. So it's worth it.
And to get you years on the back end.
And if you want to talk, again, go back to changing the tire on a gravel road with a rusty, bent up lug wrench. It's like, this stuff is better. It lasts longer. It's easy to put on. It covers better. So I wish I had something. I'm going through the the DIY sort of stuff in my head. And honestly, it's like, if you get the basics good, get a sturdy Wooster, Sherlock handle, the green one that's super rigid, get the Pro Doozy, or the Purdy White Dove, either one of those we interchange, the nice Purdy brush, and it's going to be magical how much better that job goes for you. When you paint a bedroom, it's going to be the difference of probably $9 worth of supplies, and it's going to make your life great.
So what's your favorite piece of paint paraphernalia? It could be anything.
It's interesting. I have, I'll try to be succinct here. There's an old guy. I live in a town called New Prague, and we're all Czechoslovakians. And there's this old guy named Paul Komarek who used to own a paint store downstairs. It was the old Pittsburgh Paints, and it had the wood creaky floors. It was basically one of those tin ceiling, plaster wall, brick buildings on Main Street, the high rise, glass front windows. And Paul Komarek, he used to hand mix the putty with the whiting and stuff to the wood putty to make sure it matched your wood. He would hand mix stains, everything in baby food jars. He would make his own varnish. He would tint his own paints. He had barrels of lead dust. He had barrels of linseed oil to make his own paint there. And he had a wood stove that heated that shop too. And I still have a bunch of paraphernalia from him, but it was awesome that I have a picture of him in his overalls. He had overalls just like us, and they were so caked with like lead and oil paint. It was almost like a shell on the front. And when people said they would go into Paul Komarek's paint store, he'd be standing next to the wood stove, and he'd have his sandwich or his lunch heating up on the wood stove. he got a little close, and sometimes you could really smell the linseed oil coming off Paul on those cold winter days, because he was about a foot from the damn stove, and it was loosening up the shell on the front of those overalls, man. But I have a picture of him in those overalls behind his counter next to that wood stove that I hold dearly. Also, I have my father's hand-stamped leather belt that I remember as a kid, him wearing everyday painting. Now, my father and I don't get along, but somehow it's like meaningful to me that I have this belt. So, and it was funny because he threw it in the trash. And as a kid, this is probably 25 years ago, I picked it out of the trash and I still have it.
That's amazing. So we have 10 minutes, a little under 10 minutes.
Yep.
Can you give us a war story or the worst painting experience that you've ever had?
Oh, Zach, Kenney, I hate these. I hate these. I hate talking about my faults. You know, I like to keep it positive, but I will tell you this. Oh, man. I bet you I could come up with some really good ones, but there's one that still bugs me to this day. And about once every year or two, I think about calling the clients back and fessing up. This was many, many years ago. I was doing a side job, just a standard wall repaint in this house. It was a living room with a 17 or 18 foot sort of just big room. And it's a 10-year-old house. It's just a nondescript golden oak, crappy drywall, popcorn ceiling house. And all the furniture's in the middle of the room. I'm on a 16-foot extension ladder painting away, and I drop my can of paint on their carpet. And it's taupe-colored paint. It's on the carpet, and we do what everybody does, which is immediately get it wet and start scrubbing, and towels and wet, and it didn't come out, man. Like, I've been able to save probably 10 carpets in my life by doing the scrub like hell, get it wet method.
Yeah.
I didn't save this one. And Zach, Kenney, please don't ever hold this against me. I moved a frickin' chair over that spot and I left that house. This is
Slavik, that's why I love you, man.
I still, dude, I've never verbalized this to anybody. I've never even told my people, my clients. I've never told a friend over beers. I've never told anything. Once every year or two, I think about calling that client and say, you're probably wondering where that spot came from. Or maybe you're not. Maybe you're super angry at me.
Maybe you never moved the chair.
But either way, but I still feel like fessing up. And Zach, Kenney, I went against my core values, and it still bugs me to this day. Like, I have always gone under the thing of, like, honesty is the best policy. If you go to an estimate and you've never done that before, and the person says, well, have you done these? I've said, no. I've devoted my life to this trade. I understand the principles behind it.
Yes.
I'm going to do a good job for you, but I've never done one. I would love this opportunity. You will be way better off than if you say, oh, of course. Yeah, I do this all the time, you know. I am so disappointed in myself. And enough time has passed where those people, I mean, the carpet's probably not there. I know the people don't live there anymore. It's a house I drive by. I was actually, oh, God dang it. This is hitting close to home. I was doing an estimate last week in the same block as this house, and I didn't see the same people living there. So, but it bugs me that I didn't see the same people living there. They were not, unless it was just somebody hanging out. But yeah, so I'm very disappointed in myself that the one time I took the easy route, like, it ruined my life for 2 weeks.
I think that everyone has been there.
Dude.
And we all make mistakes. I posted on my story today a mistake that we made. And,
I saw
we made
that
a lot. And I'm going to continue to do that more because, like, nobody's perfect. That's not a real thing.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes social media can be a place where everybody is so edited that you don't get the real story. And it can make you feel crazy when you're trying to hold yourself to fake standards. Yeah. So I really appreciate you sharing that story.
And Mickey too, man. Mickey's going to pray for me. I appreciate it, man. And pray for that homeowner too, man. I appreciate it, dude. But no, listen, man, it's again, one of the many mantras we have in our company here is you either learn or you earn. On a job, you either hit the gross profit and you earn something, or you learn and you'll never repeat that again. And that's one of those things where we talked about course correction. Learn or you earn, man. It was either a win or you change something.
Yeah. That's awesome, Nick. Hey, thank you so much for coming on. This has been amazing.
Dude, I feel like I just ruined my sort of outward personality. I hope people don't think of think of
Nick,
me
I
less
think
now,
that you
man.
just gained a ton of respect from a ton of people because
Oh,
you were
dude.
honest and real.
I think what
And
I need to do now is to live stream me going back to that house and apologizing or buying new carpet.
I think that you're going to get everyone send him DMs. Let's all encourage you. We want to see you make this right for yourself.
Oh, dude.
We all make mistakes, but I do think it's pretty cool. And I think that now that you've put it out there, I'm interested to see what you do with it.
You know, it'd be really interesting, man. I will tell you, in this war room, I have a plan for a few very special things important to me in this company to put up on this wall. Cutting out that paint stain on that carpet and hanging it here would be the most precious object I ever did, which is never again, stupid. You don't ever
Yes.
do this again. It's
Yes.
never worth it. I still think about it. It eats at me. And for 2 weeks, I didn't sleep because I thought every phone call was that person calling and saying I'm a crook. So,
And that's you can't have anything more valuable than those lessons.
oh man, oh geez, this is very cathartic, man. I feel much better talking to you now.
Mike, the copay is $30. You can go ahead and send that to me. Hey man, this has been awesome. Honestly, thank you.
Yeah. Listen, anytime, man. You know I'm always up for this, and we're gonna have you on Ask a Painter pretty soon too, and I'm gonna grow you about some of this stuff as well.
I'm an open book. Everybody, go follow Nick on Facebook. He has an awesome show. It's every week. There's tons of information. Check him out.
Awesome, man. Thanks again.
Thanks, man.